As the West Virginia Mountaineers prepare to start spring football practice for the 2025 season under new and old head coach Rich Rodriguez, what questions do we have, or do I have, going into this spring camp? That's what we're going to talk about in this episode, which is brought to you by BetUS Online and Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner Attorneys at Law. And we're going to have that conversation. I'm going to give you my top 5 questions right after this word from one of those sponsors. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. What is up, and welcome into another episode of Couz's Corner, your home for top shelf college football news and analysis. On tap in this episode, we're talking about the West Virginia Mountaineers, the team I like to cover and cheer for, and we're talking about the top 5 questions going into spring camp. Number one question, probably everybody's number one question. Does a starting quarterback emerge from the group that's on the roster today? Will it be Nico Markiel? Will it be Texas A&M transfer Jalen Henderson? Will it be Charlotte transfer Max Brown? Will it be redshirt freshman Khalil Wilkins? Is it possible it could be true freshman Scotty Fox? Who emerges as the number 1 quarterback? And even on top of that, who emerges as the number 2 and even number 3 quarterback? Because we've heard Coach Rod talk about how he likes to have at least 2 quarterbacks who he could win games with, and preferably likes to have 3 quarterbacks who can win games in his offense because they will run the quarterback a ton. The quarterback will take a lot of hits, so they need to be able to have other quarterbacks ready to go. Who will that be? Will we see a quarterback separate themselves in spring ball, or will it be fall camp before we know, or before we have a quarterback emerge? And even if a quarterback does emerge in spring camp, will Coach Rodriguez or his staff tell us about it? Will they keep it under wraps so that their first opponent, doesn't know who QB1 is going to be? It'll be interesting to see how this unfolds and how Coach Rodriguez handles the media and how he handles answering questions about the quarterback position as we go through spring camp. I think it's going to come down to either Nico or Jalen Henderson. I think it'll be one of those 2 guys who emerges as the QB1, with Max Brown coming in third. Khalil Wilkins, I do think is very talented, but he is a redshirt freshman, and the other guys all have a ton of experience, or at least some experience at the Power 4 level and FBS level. All right, number 2 question in spring camp for the Mountaineers. Does Jaheim White even participate? And if he does, to what level? Jaheim White did have some sort of a knee procedure done. Not exactly sure what it was. Only reason I know about it, reason you may know about it, is because he posted it on his IG account, his Instagram account. Posted a picture of himself laying in a hospital bed and said, he just had a procedure done, showed it, I guess it was a bandage or whatever wrap, whatever it was around his knee. So he had some sort of procedure. We don't know the seriousness of it. We don't know if it'll keep him out of spring camp. But even if it does, I'm not that concerned about it. Jaheim White is going to be able to play. It's his 3rd year now playing college football. Yes, it's a new offense, but if he's there, he can study tape. He can look at the playbook. I think he'll be okay. And also, maybe he can go through practice and drills, but he's limited and can't get hit. If that's the case, I'm still okay with it because Jaheim White has played enough football at this point. I'm not that concerned about him not being ready. What is the number 3 question I have going into spring camp? How many players from the 2024 team that have stayed on the team so far will play prominent roles for this football team? Now, we all know the spring portal window is coming after spring camp. It'll be interesting to see how many of the former players or players from last year's team, how many of those guys stay after spring and how many leave after spring. Some may leave on their own. Some may be asked to leave because Coach Rod doesn't feel like they're a fit. Either way, it'll be interesting to see, A, how many stay, and B, those that do stay, how many of them play prominent roles on this team, because after all, none of them were brought in by Coach Rod or his staff. Now, there are a couple players that, Kikora Tarnu and Xavier Bosley, they transferred to West Virginia from Jacksonville State. I expect they will have a little bit of an edge, maybe, over some of the other guys because of familiarity. But, it'll be interesting to see what happens to a Rodney Gallagher, what happens to a Jaden Bray, what happens to, Reed Carrico's of the world. What happens to the players already on the roster who may not have been, star players, so to speak, for the team? Ben Cutter's another example. The defensive line, Hammond Russell, Edward Vestorinen, those type of guys. How many of those guys stick around? And if they do stick around, how many play prominent roles in Rich Rod's and or Zac Alley's schemes and offenses and defenses?
Are you looking for a brand new sports book? If so, look no further than our good friends over at BetUS Online. Right now, with promo code YouTube150, you get a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit. That's right, 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit. You also get a 125% sign-up bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000. That's with promo code YouTube150 to get that 150% bonus today. If you do play, please make sure to play responsibly. And remember, you must be 18 years of age or older to play. Now, let's get back to the show.
All right. Number 4 question. Speaking of the defense and Zac Alley, what will the new defense look like? It's been assumed by many in the media that Zach's going to run a 3-3-5 defense. They said it's what he likes to run, likely what he's going to bring to West Virginia. West Virginia has experience in the past with the 3-3-5. We know Jeff Castile's on this staff. He has experience running the 3-3-5. Coach Rod has ran it in the past, or some of his teams have. So the 3-3-5 is likely coming back to West Virginia. What I'm interested to see is if it does come back, what players does he put where? Who plays the bandit spots? Who plays, the spear, what Coach Brown used to call the spear position? It'll be interesting to see what players are where and if they truly do run a 3-3-5 again. And where do they put the pieces? And, the secondary, what's the secondary look like? What players emerge in the secondary? How many of the transfers that they brought in end up starting for this team or coming out of spring practice as number one guys? I think most of them will, probably, because let's face it, West Virginia secondary was not good last year. And the guys that stayed, for the most part, are guys who didn't play very much in a defense that wasn't even very good. So I would say the transfers will have an advantage there in that regard. Plus, most of the transfers have played a ton of snaps in their careers, many of them at a very high level. So I look for most of the starters in the secondary to be newbies, to be guys who came in from the portal. Number 5, fifth and final question I have, does a wide receiver one emerge in spring? Will Cam Vaughn, the transfer from Jacksonville State, will he emerge as the number one guy? Could Jaden Bray come back, be healthy? Could he emerge as the number one guy? Does Rodney Gallagher improve his game even more from his sophomore to his junior year? And does he all of a sudden emerge as the number one guy? Does somebody like Dom Collins from Princeton, does he emerge with his speed? We all know Rich Rod loves speed. Could somebody like Dom Collins shine in Rich Rod's offense and emerge as the number one receiver? Brandon Raymond, another redshirt freshman in this offense, could he emerge? There are a lot of guys in that wide receiver room. Who comes out of spring as the number one receiver, if anybody? And just like with quarterbacks, if someone does emerge, does Rich Rod share who that is to the media and to the public? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I personally expect Cam Vaughn to be the number one guy, A, because of familiarity, B, because he's extremely talented. Not only does he have speed, he also has the size to go along with it. So I expect him to be the number one guy, but I do think Jaden Bray can push for that. I do think Dom Collins has a chance to get a lot of snaps in this offense and succeed in this offense with his speed. And I expect other guys, too, to emerge and play well. I think Rodney Gallagher, I think his talents might be brought to light a little more in Rich Rod's offense as well. So it'll be interesting to see who emerges from that position as, you're on the depth chart coming out of spring, who's number one, who's number two, and so on and so forth. What are your questions going into spring ball for the West Virginia Mountaineers? And who do you think emerges at quarterback and at wide receiver and at some of these other positions? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Also, don't forget to hit the thumbs up if you liked this video. If you thought I earned it, please hit the thumbs up button. Want to give a quick shout out to my VIP members of this episode. These are paid VIP members. If you want to become a paid VIP member, hit the join button below or go to my channel homepage. If you don't see a join button, it's over there on my channel homepage right beside my profile photo. There's also a link in the description box of the video. But the random VIP shout outs in this episode are Caleb Davis, Kenny Evans, David Cummings, Brad Cheney, and Jeremy Croy. Thank you all for your support of the channel. Thank you for helping me keep the lights on. Also, another shout out to my sponsors, BetUS Online and Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner Attorneys at Law. I really appreciate you tuning into this episode. Hope the rest of your day is top shelf. And as always, don't forget to cue country roads.